Hi folks, Van Prepper here. Today I want to do the first in a video series that's going to take a closer look at some of the amendments to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and what I think are some misconceptions that go along with those things and what they actually mean and the origins of those amendments. The first one I'm going to look at, if you know me, you've looked at my channel before, you probably could guess it's going to be the Second Amendment. I'm going to look at what the Second Amendment actually says. We're going to go into a little bit of detail in the wording, and then we're going to look at some other stuff and what's probable, what events took place right before they wrote it, and what the logical assumed meaning or intention of the Second Amendment is. So the first thing we're going to look at is the actual wording of the Second Amendment itself. It says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, there's a lot of misconceptions in that. I was always told that this amendment was to preserve hunting rights. Okay, first off, that's ridiculous. In the late 1700s, if you didn't hunt, you didn't eat. Everybody hunted. And the idea that it would be simply for self-defense is nonsensical in that that was a presumed right. Nobody in the late 1800s would have questioned in any way somebody's right to hunt and somebody's right to defend themselves, their family, and their property. So I think we can really kind of get rid of those things in that, not that the Second Amendment doesn't provide for those things, but that's not the meaning of the Second Amendment. Those things were just assumed because that was just what everybody did. So we can look at the first part, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. A lot of people look at that and say, well, see, that applies to the militia. Wrong. We do have an Army and an Air Force and a Navy and Marines and a National Guard. First off, none of them are the militia. Over and over and over again, the United States Supreme Court and language in the Constitution has recognized that the militia is a separate entity. It is an entity made up of the people, of the citizens of the United States of America, totally separate from the armed forces that we have, our standing army. So forget that idea. And look at the idea that this simply applies to the militia. It does not. Okay, first off, you can look up quotes of the Founding Fathers yourself. For time's sake, I'm not going to do that. But you'll find quotes where they're pretty clear that we are all the militia. So if we are all the militia, then we all have the right to bear arms. But that comma here says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The people, the United States Supreme Court has already said multiple times in multiple cases that whenever you see the term the people in a law, it is assumed that it is it equates to the individual citizens. Okay, so the right of the people shall not be to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So the right, we individuals have a right to keep and bear arms. Now, then the next part is people say, well, nobody's trying to take away your right. That's not what infringe means. Infringe doesn't mean to completely do away with, to take away, to totally destroy. Infringe means to hinder in any way. If you have to go back to the language, what it meant when it was written. You can't take today's language and say, well, that's not what it meant in the late 1700s. You have to go back then. It means hindered in any way. So if the right to bear arms, forget not taken away, that's a given. It's not supposed to be infringed. It's not even supposed to be messed with at all. The United States government is not supposed to be stepping in and saying, well, you can have this, but you can't have that, you can have that. That's not provided for in the Constitution. Do I think we should all have nuclear weapons? No, I don't, obviously. But do I think we should all have the ability to have automatic weapons? Yes, I do. Because I think that the clear intention of the Second Amendment is that we would have the ability to cast off the shackles of an oppressive, tyrannical government the same way that the Founding Fathers had just done. Why was the Second Amendment necessary? Because they were coming from a point in time where they had just, King George had just attempted to disarm them to avoid a war. and they wanted to make sure that there was no way that our citizenry could be disarmed, so that if we ever needed to cast off the shackles of another oppressive government, that we would have the means to do that. Am I advocating going to war with the government? No, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the Second Amendment exists in the event that we need it. And a couple of quotes from the Founding Fathers. One said, the beauty of the Second Amendment is that you don't need it until they try and take it away. And another Founding Father, I think it was Thomas Jefferson, said that the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed from time to time, or watered from time to time, by the blood of patriots and tyrants. And what that means is, listen, every once in a while, it's necessary. Revolution is a necessary evil, because the natural state of man is to be power hungry and oppressive. And are we at that point? I'm not here to say that. I'm just telling you what the Second Amendment means. The Second Amendment was based partially on the right to keep and bear arms in English common law, and was influenced by the English Bill of Rights in 1689. Sir William Blackstone described this right as an auxiliary right, meaning you're just born with it, everybody has it, supporting the natural right of self-defense, resistance to oppression, and the civic duty to act in concert in defense of the state. In the 21st century, the amendment has been subjected to renewed academic inquiry and judicial interest. In District of Columbia versus Heller, 2008, the Supreme Court handed down a landmark decision expressly holding that the amendment protects an individual right to possess and carry firearms. In McDonald versus Chicago, 2010, the court clarified its earlier decisions, limiting the amendment's impact to a restriction to the federal government, expressly holding that the 14th Amendment applies to the Second Amendment to the state and local governments to the same extent that the Second Amendment applies to the federal government. So what was the intention? Hunting and defending yourself and your family and property were considered a given. We already talked about that. The law wouldn't have been necessary if that's why they put it in there. The colonists had just fought a war against King George's army to win their freedom. We just talked about that. England had attempted to disarm the colonists to prevent the coming war. The amendment, in my opinion, exists for two purposes. We already talked about that: to provide for national defense and to provide a means of citizens to cast off the shackles of oppressive government if one should arise. Since the purpose was to allow citizens the means to fight and win in a war against an army, whether foreign or domestic, the limiting of what types of guns citizens have defies logic, unless you also limit the types of weapons the standing army has. So I hope that this not so short look at the Second Amendment helps people to come to a better understanding. Again, I didn't write the amendment. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. That's just what it says. That's one beautiful thing about standing on the side of truth. It doesn't really matter if other people like it, because you're standing on the truth. There is absolute truth in this world, and that is a pretty clear absolute truth. So I hope you like the video. I hope you share. I hope you subscribe. I hope you tell your friends. There's going to be some more videos, one coming up especially on free speech and our drastic misunderstanding of what the First Amendment protects and covers. But for right now, Merry Christmas. I'm Van Prepper. Happy shooting.